In this YouTube ads guide for beginners, you're going to get a complete done-for-you campaign template to drive targeted leads to your site. Hey, I'm Jason, and if you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for the latest in traffic and conversion strategies to help grow your business online. Now, as we go through this beginner's guide, there's going to be a detailed timestamp table of contents in the description, and if you want to skip the strategy behind the template and just jump straight into the Google Ads interface, then here's the timestamp to do that. Here, we're going to briefly talk about the campaign structure, what type of targeting and messaging we should be using, and then we will go straight into actually building out our campaign. Now, this is a complete done-for-you campaign template, so we're not going to be diving into every single targeting option and every single type of video ad. We are going to 80-20 the process and focus in on this campaign structure, because after spending thousands of dollars in testing and working with lots of different clients, this has been one of the best things that we found for beginner advertisers on YouTube in order to find success in driving leads. So yes, there's many other ways to do it, but we are just going to 80-20 this process and really focus in on the targeting and the types of ads that are proven to drive the most conversions on a website, as opposed to just getting you a bunch of cheap views. Because after all, sure, we can get really cheap views, but it doesn't matter if those people don't actually convert. So this is the diagram we'll be using throughout this tutorial to illustrate how we're going to structure and organize our campaigns. Now, at the campaign level, we'll be choosing our languages and locations and some global settings for everything. We'll go through that during the account build phase. What's most important here in 80-20ing the process is when it comes to your ad groups, you want to think of your ad groups as a prospect, as a potential customer. So each ad group represents a different person that might be interested in your product or service. And so to 80-20 this process, we're going to focus on in-market audiences. We're also going to do detailed demographics, or Google likes to call them who they are. And then we're also going to focus on life events. Now, when you go through the Google Ads interface, you'll see there are a lot of options here. And this is because you can target by type of people, which is what we're going to do. And you can also target by content. So briefly, when you target by content, you can choose keywords, topics, and placements, or specific videos and specific channels. Now, while this can be very powerful when you're just getting started, this is not where you want to start if you're looking to drive leads off of YouTube. We're going to wind up paying a little bit more when we target specific people, but this is going to ensure that we're targeting those people that Google has already identified are actually primed to whip out their credit card, as opposed to the other type of targeting topics. It will cost less in the beginning, but it's going to take a lot more money in order to actually get conversions. And as you can see here from this screenshot from the Google Ads interface, there is no shortage of in-market audiences. So you're bound to find at least one or two that are going to be a good fit for your business, but that's all you need to get started. So for our ad groups here, we're actually going to start off with 7 ad groups. I'll go through click by click exactly how to set these up, but we're going to choose 2 different in-market audiences that we think are very relevant. We're going to choose 1 detailed demographic setting, and then we're going to choose 1 life event. And essentially what this allows us to do is take 4 specific targeting options and then create different combinations in order to quickly figure out what combination or what type of targeting is ultimately going to drive the most sales, which is the most important part here. Now, the final part of our process here is going to be our actual ad. Now, if you want detailed information on what specifically should go in your ad, how to script, make sure you hit that subscribe button for videos on how to do that. Here, we're just going to talk about the type of ad we should be running, and then how to make sure that our ad is formatted correctly for the ad format that we're going to be using. And all ads need to do is get people to click. That's it. There's nothing fancy with our ads. It can even be a video simple as what you're watching right now, explaining to people why they should go over to your website. Again, we'll link up in the description to a video that walks you through how to actually script your ad. Now, when it comes to the type of video ad, there are a lot of options. In fact, we have a whole 20-minute video on all the different ad formats that you have when it comes to video. Here, though, we're going to use skippable in-stream ads. And skippable in-stream ads are so powerful because you actually don't pay for the view until someone watches more than 30 seconds of your ad. Now, another popular ad format I'll call discovery ads. And discovery ads are those ads that pop up all around YouTube in the search and suggested, and people have to physically click on them. Whereas what we're going to do is we're going to have those videos that pop up in front of other videos when our ideal prospects or customers are watching, just content around YouTube. So we're not really concerned with what content they're watching. We're actually concerned with who we're actually targeting with the video. And what's so powerful about this is you're able to reach out to the right people, and you're not going to pay unless they're actually engaged with what you have to say in the ad. And this is one of the few ad formats where you can actually put a direct link or call to action on your video, so it's very easy, even on a mobile or tablet device, for people to click, as opposed to telling them to go to the top of the description like you'd have to do with a discovery ad. If that didn't make sense, that's okay. You're just going to skip a lot of headache by using skippable in-stream ads. Now, when it comes to skippable in-stream ads, while you can have a direct link, you're very limited on the characters. So we're going to have 15 characters for our call to action, and then we're going to have 10 characters for our headline. We'll walk through that when we're actually putting together our ad. And then for your messaging, you just have to be very clear on how you're going to help your ideal customer prospect achieve the results they're looking for, and maybe address some of their problems. Again, there will be a link in the description to a video that has a full-blown tutorial on how to actually write your YouTube ad script. Now, the only other thing we need to talk about before we dive into click-by-click putting together our campaigns is what to do at the end screen and our calls to action. So this sample diagram here is showing where the button is going to show up on desktop. Now you'll see at the very top, mobile tap here. This is probably something you've seen on older YouTube ads. You don't want to do this with your in-stream ads anymore. All you need to do is have a click here arrow where it's shown on this particular example video, because this is where it's going to show up on desktop. And then on mobile, it's actually going to show up on the entire bottom part of the ad. But you don't want to put a click here on the other side of your video, because all of a sudden your click here will be pointing to skip. So when you're formatting your videos or trying to figure out how to put the arrows for telling people where to click, this is all you need to do for your in-stream ads. And with that, we're finally ready to put together our account. Again, timestamp table of contents in the description, because we are going to be going click by click exactly how to set up your conversion campaign. Now let's revisit our diagram to go over exactly what we're going to be putting together in the Google Ads interface. So first, we're going to create our campaign. We're going to set what our country and inventory and budget's going to be. Then we're going to create 2 ad groups. We're actually going to create ad group number 1 and 3 as an example, because once you know how to do that, you'll be able to do the other 5. And then we'll go through how to actually put together your ads and then easily duplicate your ads across all the ad groups with an easy copy paste hack. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. Now, the very first step, when you're in your Google Ads interface, you'll want to go over here and click on campaigns. And before you set up a new campaign, we want to make sure that your YouTube account is actually connected to your Google Ads account. So what you'll do is you'll want to come up here to Tools and Settings, click on Tools and Settings, and then click on Linked Accounts. Once you're in Linked Accounts, we'll scroll down to YouTube here and then go ahead and click on Details. Now this is where you're going to be able to connect your YouTube account to your Google Ads account. You can have multiple YouTube channels connected to the same account, and then you can have multiple accounts connected to the same YouTube channel. So they're not locked in. We have several channels that are connected to several different ad accounts. It's completely okay. So we'll go ahead and click this plus button, and then you just search your channel URL. The fastest way is to just go to your channel, copy that URL, and paste it in here so you make sure you get the right one. You'll go through a couple of steps for verification, and then you'll be good to go. Your channel will be listed here along with any other channels you've already connected. So we'll go ahead and come up here and go back, and now it's time to actually put together our campaign. So we'll click that giant we'll click that giant blue plus button, and we are actually going to create a campaign without a goal. Now if you want to pause here, you can see all of the different options Google Ads gives us, but here we want both hands on the steering wheel, and we don't want to take one hand off and say, you know what, Google, it's okay if you control part of the campaign. You want both hands on the steering wheel because this is your hard-earned cash. And then we'll go ahead and click on continue. And here, of course, we're going to select video as our ad format. Now on this page, this is where you're going to make some decisions as to what types of videos you're going to run. You can't retroactively choose here. So we're always going to choose custom unless we're doing something really special with non-skippable or outstream ads, even though I hardly ever recommend using those. So once we've gone through through that, we've hit continue. It's time to just give our campaign a name. And now we're going to start diving into the nitty-gritty details of setting up our campaign. So if you remember our diagram, we are at the very top. We're doing our campaign structure. So the first thing we want to look at is our bidding strategy and then our budget and dates. Now with the bidding strategy, we're going to stick with cost per view. And this simply means that we're going to pay every time someone views our video. So this cost per view for an in-stream ad will be after 30 seconds. If we were doing discovery ads, then it would be pretty much after someone clicks. Now, when it comes to budgets and dates, you're going to want to set a daily budget. You can always turn off your campaign. But something that can be really frustrating is if you put a campaign total and then Google spends all your money and then you find out that you want to keep running ads, well, guess what? Now you're going to have to go in and make changes as opposed to just allowing the campaign to run. So the way you make sure that you don't actually get hit with a giant ad bill that you weren't planning on is to actually come down here and set an end date. So typically you want to set an end date anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks out. So if anything happens to you, you forget, someone winds up in the hospital, life happens, all of your campaigns turn off after a set time because Google is not going to let you retroactively say, hey, I didn't mean to run ads and would you please give me a refund? No, that's not going to happen. So the next part is our networks, languages, and locations. So for our networks, we're just going to uncheck video partners because this is kind of a nebulous part where you don't really know where video partners are, where things are showing up. We want to pay for videos to show up on YouTube. We have yet to find an advantage to actually clicking the video network. So the next place is languages, and languages is only something you want to use if you're targeting an area that has a lot of different languages in it, or if you're targeting a country that has multiple national languages, right? So for the most part, you're going to leave this blank and actually focus on the locations as a way to segment out who you want. Now, the best way to do locations is to go ahead and click on advanced search and then click on bulk ad. And so when you click bulk ad, you can literally just copy and paste or start typing in zip codes, provinces, states, and countries that you want to target. So any place you want to target, this is where you're going to put it. Now, if you're a local-based business, please don't use radius. Go ahead, spend the extra 10 minutes, find all the zip codes and neighborhood names in your area, and then go ahead and paste them in here. Because when you're looking at your location data after you've paid for some traffic, you're actually going to be able to see exact zip codes and neighborhoods that have been used and how they're actually performing. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and click on search. It's going to find all of them, and then we can either target all or we can exclude all. I'll go ahead and click target all and then go ahead and click save. And now we have all of our locations ready to go, and we'll be able to see our views and conversion data by location that we've entered here. So if you don't enter the location here, you're not going to be able to see that data. Now, this next part is a little controversial, but as an entrepreneur or small business owner, I highly recommend just clicking expanded inventory because YouTube does a really good job of making sure that inappropriate content doesn't show up on their platform. And due to the adpocalypse that happened a few years ago, big brands are just downright scared of showing up on the wrong video. But here, we're more concerned about the person that we're targeting as opposed to what they happen to be watching. And so when you click expanded inventory, you're most likely going to pay a lot less per view, which means a lot less per conversion and click, because you're not going to be competing on the same ad space that the bigger brands who have much larger budgets are actually going to be using. So we'll go ahead and click on expanded inventory here, and then in excluded types and labels down here, I like to uncheck content that hasn't been rated yet. And so if you are a little bit concerned about the types of videos your ads will show up on, then go ahead and leave this box checked. Now, excluded content is something that we're going to skip here because Google keeps saying that they're going to take it away, although it's been almost a year now and it's still there. So if it's gone by the time you're watching this video, you don't have to worry about it. The inventory types have been designed to replace it. Now, here are the additional options we have. And unless you're spending more than $100 a day, you really don't need to worry worry about all but one of these. So we'll get to one. Now, when it comes to your optimization, typically what we do is we allow all conversions to apply to all campaigns. If you have some advanced tracking, then you can go ahead and click on Choose Conversion Actions, and then a pop-up will appear that shows all of your conversion tags, and you can individually say, I only want conversions to be counted for this tag to this campaign. If that didn't make any sense, don't worry about it. It's an advanced OCD thing that 9 out of 10 business owners just don't need. But what we do need is to come down here to Devices and uncheck TV screens, because you don't want to pay for your ad to show up on a TV screen, and simply because there's no way to click to your website on a TV screen. So there's no point in paying for the view ever. So we'll go ahead and uncheck TV screens. Now, when it comes to frequency capping, again, this is only going to matter if you're spending hundreds of dollars a day, or you're targeting the most narrow set of people ever, or doing some sort of remarketing, which we're not doing in this campaign. So you really don't have to worry about this. Now, I'll quickly explain the difference though. The difference between impressions and views. So impressions is how many times someone sees your ad. Views is how many times someone actually watches your ad. So if we're talking about in-stream, as long as they don't watch past 30 seconds, that's still an impression. If they watch past 30 seconds, now it's a view. With a discovery ad, if someone sees your ad, they're scrolling through their feed, and they go, I'm not gonna click on that. That's an impression. If they actually click on it, then it becomes a view. So that's how you can really decide, impression-wise, how many times someone will potentially see your ad and not click on it. So if you want to make sure someone doesn't see your ad 10 times a day and they haven't clicked on it yet, then you can go ahead and set an impression frequency. But really, unless you have a really small audience, it's not going to matter, or you're spending lots. So that does it for this. I don't really recommend doing ad schedule unless you have business hours and you only want your video ad to show up while you're available to take phone calls. And then we're going to go ahead at the bottom here, skip ad group creation. So if we scroll down a little bit, you'll see that we actually have the option of putting together our ad group right here, but we're not going to do that. I'm going to show you how to put it together outside of the campaign building process, so you know how to easily create ad groups in the future. So we'll go ahead and skip ad group creation. We're going to go ahead and click skip again, and then it's going to say, okay, create campaign. Got a little tongue twisted there. And then we're going to get a summary of the campaign that we just created. And now what I want to do is show you how to actually make changes to everything we just did. So once we've completed our campaign process, it will take us to our campaign page. Now, obviously there's no ads, there's no ad groups, because we haven't set anything up yet. But if we need to change any of the settings that we did, we can always come over here, click on settings, and then everything we just went through is right here. So definitely don't feel like anything in that campaign setup is absolutely set in stone. The only thing that's set in stone was those first two options, choosing the type of campaign and then choosing your type of video ad. So that's why we clicked custom on both, so we have full control to make changes here in the settings if need be. So let's go ahead and go back to ad groups and take a look at our diagram before we jump into actually creating our ad group. Now at the top here, you can see we've completed our campaign setup, and that's our green check mark. So the next step in the process is actually going to be starting to set up our ad groups, and this is where we're going to start choosing our audience targeting and creating our audience targeting combinations. So for this particular example, what we're going to do is we're going to create ad group number 1 here, just an in-market audience, and then ad group number 3, an in-market plus life event, so you can see which ones you should be combining and which ones you should keep separate. And then you can use this exact process to create all of your ad groups. Again, timestamp table of contents to come back. So from our campaign that we just set up, we can come up here to the top and click on this giant blue plus button to actually create our ad group. Now inside of our ad group, again, you'll recognize this from earlier in the training, this is where we're actually going to create our different audience targeting. So we have our people and we have our content. Of course, content is the keywords and placements and topics that we're going to ignore, and we're just going to focus on people, and we're going to start with demographics. So we'll put our ad group name as in market, and then this is just something I like to use where I put at the very beginning the ad group name, what type of audience the ad group is, so it's very easy to see when I'm analyzing results later. So we'll put in market. Of course, we're not quite sure which in-market audience it is yet, so we'll go ahead and leave that blank for now. And then we'll come down here and start with demographics. So under demographics, because we want conversions, we're going to uncheck 18 to 24. This is the only part of the demographic process where I recommend doing this for every single ad group. Now, if your product is for a specific age or gender or parental status, then go ahead and check those boxes. But always let data be driving these decisions as opposed to just making an assumption, you know what, I think guys, or I think girls, or I think parents are going to be more interested in this. Unless the product is specifically for one of these demographics here, go ahead and leave everything checked except 18 to 24. Now we're actually going to select our audience. Now that 18 to 24, we're going to do that pretty much with every single ad group. So we'll go ahead and click on our audiences now to find our in-market. Now we'll have several different options here. We're going to skip affinity. We're not going to talk about remarketing or combined audiences, and we'll jump straight down to what are they actively researching. Now what's really cool about these audiences is Google has done their creepy thing, figuring out what people are doing online and putting together massive lists and saying, you know what, based upon their behavior and behavior of previous buyers, we think they're in the market to spend money on this. And so that's why we use these in-market audiences. So we'll go ahead and click through in-market, and then we'll go through a long laundry list. To save time, I'm just going to jump straight to the one that I want to use for our example purposes, which is advertising and marketing services. This is a very long laundry list, and you're going to want to identify at least 2 to 3 in-market audiences that you want to start with. So we'll go ahead and click on advertising and marketing services. Obviously, you're going to do a little more digging, and it might take a little bit in the beginning, but all we have to do is click that box, and then we'll come back up to the top and we'll name it advertising and marketing services. Now this is important because this is all we're going to do with the audience targeting in this ad group. I know there's a lot of other options, there's a lot of other things in here, but we really just want one targeting or one demographic and target audience set per ad group. And this will make a whole lot of sense when we go through the combination for the next one. So the only other thing we have here is going to be setting our cost per view. Now, when it comes to in-market audiences and topics and affinity and even keywords, these are very, very large audiences. So we shouldn't need to pay more than 5 to 10 cents. So here I'm just going to put 5 cents and then go ahead and skip ad group creation. Yes, I want to skip. And then this next part is very, very important. So when we click save ad group, there's going to be this pop-up that's going to ask, do you want to be discovery or do you want to be in-stream? This is one of the few places where you can't go back and change this. So here we need to make sure we click skippable in-stream ad because that's what we're putting together when we create our ads. You can't go back and forth with your ad groups. So we'll go ahead and select skippable in-stream and then save the format. So now we have our first ad group, advertising and marketing services. So if we go back to our diagram, we've set up our campaign and we've created our first ad group. So now let's go over here and create ad group number 3 by creating a combination of a detailed demographic and an in-market. So you'll see in our diagram here, we actually only need to find one other in-market audience in order to make all this work based upon our combinations. So let's go ahead and go back. We're going to click that blue plus button again. We'll say in-market plus life because now we're going to do a life event, and this will just tell us we're doing in-market plus the life event. We'll come down to demographics and do the same thing over again and uncheck 18 to 24. I'm going fast, a little faster on purpose here. And then we can go over to audiences, and when you go to search, the previous ones you've just selected will show up. So to save us time, instead of going to browse and then looking at business services and advertising and marketing again, we can just go ahead and check this box. And now we have our first set of targeting. And now we're going to go over to browse. We'll go back to the same place we went for the last ad group, but this time, instead of clicking on in-market audiences, we're going to click on life events. Now, these are all the collections of life events. Now, in our particular example, we're looking for business owners who want to learn a little bit more about Google Analytics, as you'll see with our sample ad. So here, I'm going to go to business creation and then select recently started a business. Now, it's very possible that you'll come in here, you'll look at this list, and you go, Jason, there's nothing there. There's nothing there for me. That's okay. That just means you're going to look for other in-market audiences to have as separate ad groups as opposed to doing this layering method. So if you can't find any life events or you can't find any detailed demographics that you want to go after, that's okay. You can just choose more in-market audiences. Just make sure your total ad groups don't go more than 7 for one campaign. So we'll go ahead and click on recently started a business, and then we'll go ahead and minus all of this and give our ad group a name. It's in-market plus life, so we'll go ahead and give it a quick short code for the one audience we've chosen and then the demographic that we've chosen. And with that, we're ready for our bid. Now here, because I'm being a little more narrow, I'm saying I want people who are in market and I want people who just started a business. Then we can go ahead and set it to just 10 cents per view, but it could easily just as much be 5 cents per view, just like we did with the previous campaign. And so now we can go ahead and click on skip ad creation again, and we'll go ahead and click on skip, and then we'll save the ad group. Again, skippable in-stream ad, save format, and now we have our 2 ad groups here. So going back to our diagram very quickly, we have our campaign, we have ad group number 1, and we have ad group number 2, and you have all the information you need in order to put together the rest of your ad groups. And so now that we have all of our ad groups put together, it's time to take a look at putting together our actual video ads. And the good news is once you have all of your ad groups set up, it's going to be very easy to copy and paste all these video ads to all of the ad groups that you've created. So let's jump back over to the interface, and we're actually, instead of clicking that blue plus button, because that's for creating our ad groups, we're going to just click on one of the ad groups we've already made. So we'll go ahead and click on our ad group, and it will automatically take us to the ad section of that ad group. So we're at campaign, then we clicked on ad group, and now we're actually looking at our ads. So here what we're going to do is now click that giant blue plus button, and we'll enter the URL of the video we want to use as our in-stream ad. Now there are only a couple pieces of information Google needs in order for us to start running our in-stream ad. The first is the final URL, so this is going to be the actual URL that people are being driven to, and then your display URL, which can pretty much be a much prettier version. So in this particular example, we have actmarketing.io and then a bunch of random jargon after that that is Google Analytics tracking. So instead of showing people that jumbled mess, we just went ahead and put actmarketing.io. Now it is important that you don't use too many capitalizations in this, because sometimes Google's picky and they say that this has too many caps, but I always try it, and then if they tell me to make everything lowercase, then I do. Now this next step is going to be the call to action, and you absolutely need to do this. This is not optional. And so this call to action is going to, you see, I'm a little passionate there, right? So you want to make sure that this call to action box is clicked, and this is going to give you that actual clickable button on every single device. This is so important. This is so powerful. This is why we talked about having that arrow, because on mobile and desktop, you're going to have a actual button people can click to go to your website. That's what makes this type of ad so powerful right now. So filling out our call to action and headline, you'll see our headline is going to be this small bit of text, and then our call to action is going to be what's on the actual button. So what I recommend doing is something like get it now, download, or click here, something that's very clear telling people to take an action, because you really only have 10 characters. It's not going to allow you to be all that creative with your headline and your call to action. Now, unlike making sure you check call to action, you don't want to check upload your own image with your companion banner. So I know we're a little cut off here up top, but you can see that this right here on desktop, that's your companion banner that shows up next to your video. If you upload a custom image, that 30-second grace watch time completely goes away. So what you want to do is make sure that you don't have any custom image uploaded. So needless to say, just make sure that this is left on auto generate. Now we're going to go ahead and give our ad a name, and then we're going to click save ad. So here's our ad. If we had another version of this ad, we could go ahead and go through the exact same process over again for all of the ads we have. So once we have all of our ads, I'm just going to stick with the one for our example. We'll go ahead and if you have more than one, click up here, or if you only have one, you'll go ahead and click this box, and then we'll come up here to edit, and we're going to copy. Now, if you're using a Mac, Command C, Windows, Control C, either way, you're going to copy, go ahead and copy, And once you do, you'll have this little notification at the bottom here, and then paste will actually show up. So what we want to do is we don't want to paste it here because we already have our ads. So we're actually going to come up here and go back to our actual campaign level, and then we're going to click on ad groups. So we're back to where we can see all of the ad groups we created, and you'll see this paste button is actually still here. So what we can do is click on paste, and then this pop-up will show up. It'll give us a list of all of our campaigns. We can click through to the campaign that we're making. In this particular instance, it's the template version 1, and then we can click on all the ad groups we want the ads to be copied to. So once we do, we can go ahead and click on done, and then it will ask if they want to pause the ads, or if there's a duplicate, don't go ahead and make it. So here, there's not gonna, we don't have to worry about that because we're making ads for the first time. And then once we go ahead and click paste, all of the ads we just put together are now in all of our other ad groups. So you don't have to go into each individual ad group and create your ads over and over and over again. This will save you a tremendous amount of time. So going back to our diagram here, we are pretty much complete with the account building process because we've put together our campaign, we've chosen all of our settings, we've put together ad group number 1 and ad group number 3. Again, you can go through the timestamp table of contents. That process will apply across the board. And then we've gone ahead and created our ads. And I've just put a check mark next to the first ad in numbers 1 and 3 because that's what we've done so far. And so the only other thing that you have to worry about doing is going through and making your other ad groups and then duplicating your ads to those other ad groups. So that does it for the account building process. This is the complete template for putting together a lead generation campaign with YouTube in-stream ads. So now I want to briefly talk about experiment, right? Because you've put together your 5 to 7 ad groups. Let's say you run traffic for a few weeks. Run traffic for a few weeks. Now what the heck do you do? How do you know when something's working and when something isn't? So all you need to do is make sure you have at least 1,000 impressions or 1,000 views per ad group before you start making changes. Now ideally, you want to hit that 100 view mark with all of your ad groups, but I understand if you're on a tight budget, then you're going to want to use 1,000 impressions as your threshold. So either way, let's go through an example of what we would do with our ad groups that we've set up after a couple weeks of testing. So let's say we go through a couple weeks of testing and we realize that these 3 campaigns, numbers 1, 3, and 4, they're giving us a cost per click of less than $3. Okay, great. But then all the other campaigns, our clicks are costing us anywhere from $5 to $6 per click. Well, that's not good. So let's go ahead and focus on the ones that are giving us the lowest cost per click. Now I'm going with cost per click instead of conversions because chances are you're not going to have enough conversions in the first couple weeks in order to make an actual decision. So here we're going to use cost per click as our way of knowing whether or not we should continue with a particular ad group. And so what we would do here is we would pause all of the ad groups that are underperforming in terms of our cost per click and then start looking at other metrics to figure out which one of the remaining ad groups is going to give us the best long-term results. So we're going to be looking at things like view rates and view duration, how long are people actually watching the ad, and then you want to see the ad engagement. And of course, if you have multiple ads, you're going to want to start looking at which ad is actually performing the best given the ad group. Now, something that's very important is just as with this example, you can see that ad 1.1 is working well in the first 2 ad groups, but ad 1.2 is working well in the 3rd ad group. So the way your ads are performing needs to be on an ad group basis, not a campaign basis. And that is all there is to it to creating a YouTube ads conversion campaign. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more digital deep dives just like this one. Comment below with any questions you have. You have that timestamp table of contents to go through this super long tutorial. I sincerely hope you have a much better understanding of how to use YouTube ads to be successful generating leads. Hit that like button, subscribe, and until the next, keep building the business you love.